Hello, everyone, and hi, Shinzen. Thank you so much for joining. And it's a great pleasure and an honor. And I'm so happy to see you, dude. It's so
Yeah,
good.
I am delighted to see you. Last time I saw your face, we were in China,
Oh, yeah.
um,
Oh, yeah.
and that was a wonderful time. And the Chinese say, you may remember from Confucius, the greatest joy is to have friends come from far away. And that's what I feel now, seeing all my Russian and other international relatives. Um, it's like, what a joy to be with all of you. So, through China, I'm saying hello from America.
Yeah, and we are all over the globe, of course, nowadays. So you're probably the earliest, and I'm probably the latest, and everyone's there in between. Okay, so
Hold it just a second. Someone's at my
right,
door.
sure, sure.
Oh, I'm broadcasting. Okay, great. Someone's borrowing my refrigerator.
Oh, okay. And 8 a.m. in the morning.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so as you know, we meet. Actually, last time we met in these circumstances was in 2020, I believe, 5 years
Wow.
ago. Yeah, long time ago, maybe 21. Anyway, long time ago. And so here we are again, continuing to teach the teachers to prepare the next wave, the next batch of mindfulness professionals, as we call them here in this program, because all of these guys here are not necessarily mindfulness instructors, or they may not intend to work as mindfulness instructors, but they want to use these skills and methods in their own fields of work, like psychotherapists or coaches or all different kinds of applications. So, mindfulness professionals is our general umbrella term, so to speak. And we are coming to to an end of this cohort training. This weekend, this coming weekend, is actually our final module. So we're meeting with you as almost certified mindfulness professionals. And of course, everyone had a lot of questions. Some of them are more philosophical, some of them are more personal, and some of them are practical. But I thought that maybe a good way to start would be to address them, us, as just these future mindfulness professionals. So whatever you have to say in this regard, as words of inspiration or caution or whatever you feel is relevant and necessary to say in these circumstances, please do.
Have you talked much about expansion and contraction as a theme in the UM system? I'm
Um,
asking you, Victor.
right, right. We'd reference it, but it was not a direct theme that we'd explore.
I would say keep in mind the complementarity between expansion and contraction. I know that sounds abstract. I'll try to make it more tangible. We are called to be aligned with the spirit of our times. In German, it's called Zeitgeist, or French, Esprit du Temps. And I'm suspecting that in the Slavic languages, there's something equivalent.
Дух времени.
Duch is spirit. Yes, I
Geist.
know that word. So and we're called, therefore, to actually a very big wave in the history of the world, which is with the AI revolution that is occurring, an education revolution can occur at the grassroots level in the basic skills that all human beings need to be objectively and sensorially satisfied with their life in the long term. We're called to be the representatives of common sense and the distilled essence of science. That's a huge mission from a certain point of view. To carry that kind of mission in a world where there is still much danger and violence, that's a hero's journey. So from that perspective, it's very big. But in order to keep balance, the bigger the plan, I just named a big plan. Lots of people have big plans. Rhetoric is one thing, depth is something else. We're being asked to implement a big, beautiful action plan in the world. And to balance the size of that calling, I would strongly advise that we all keep very small. Freedom is in the small. To walk into any situation and be the master of that situation is to walk into any situation and be so small that that situation is just a dream sort of floating around your head because you're resting in the non-somethingness of the person who is teaching the great teachings. So when I walk into countries or parts of the United States where there might be danger or problems, I always try to walk in the unborn, to be so small that if anyone were to even look in my direction, they would just maybe get the hint of a smile somewhere. So walk small and carry the spirit of the times And if that seems big or even dangerous, get smaller. That would be some words about a balanced approach. We had an event in the United States that was very traumatic. I'm sure everyone in the world knows that we had an attack on New York City and the Pentagon, and it was substantial. And when it first occurred, all of the information infrastructure of the country collapsed. For a while, you couldn't make a telephone call, you couldn't find out even what was going on. And I was in the middle of a retreat, running a retreat that was mostly attended by people from New York City and Washington. We were in Virginia, very close, if you know the geography of that part of the world. And I remember thinking, even if we are actually at war, this retreat will hold. I knew stories in Japan in the 16th century. It's called the Sengoku Jidai in Japanese. It's the age of civil war, 1600s. You see it in Japanese movies. And there was a case where a Zen temple caught on fire because of the battle, and the monks couldn't get out. And they went to the meditation hall and they just sat. And afterwards, when all the fires went out, they were all just there sitting. No one moved. And I thought, if they can do it, we can do it. The center will hold. And it did. And we were able to be in contact with the world eventually and do what needed to be done and still maintain our practice. And at the end, when we had the talking circle, we had processed the national trauma at that retreat. The country was just beginning to deal with that. And we, give a closing message as people are going to leave and they're going to go to empty airports and a very confused public. Everyone knew what their mission was, how they would subtly, by how they carried themselves, begin the healing process that needed to happen. And we walked into an airport. It was a huge airport, and there was like almost no one in it. I'd never seen anything like that in the United States. But there were a few people, some of them caught in transportation difficulties. And we walked into that airport radiating a smallness that carried a cloud of comfort, and we could sense it. So then I knew, yeah, this works in times of peace, it works in times of war. And I think that's what I have to say, Victor.
Wow, some big, small words. Mm, that actually mm, rhymes well with one of the questions that some of the students asked, and one of the questions was, how do you, well, actually, two or even three questions about the same kind of topic. So one of them is, when you get to the restful states, attuned to the pleasantness of the restful states. And in a sense, you were alluding to that right now, talking about the unborn or
Yeah,
um,
that's a very deep restful state
right,
that you can
right, of
have
course.
while
The
you go
direction, though.
about life. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
But in a more mundane, say, terms, when we practice focus and rest, um, how would you recognize when it becomes an evasion strategy rather than a meaningful, restful place, to replenish and go on? So where is this borderline between avoidance and utilizing the restful and other pleasant states, basically?
One of the things that we encourage in the unified mindfulness system is that people form a clear conceptual model of what their goals in practice are. And those goals can belong to various dimensions. And I think you have familiarized them with our happiness grid,
Sure,
which sort of is an individual's well being laid out in a matrix the way the periodic table of the elements in chemistry is laid out. It's a similar concept that we look broadly but also deeply at the issue of an individual's happiness. So, one of the dimensions of happiness is sensory fulfillment. So, if you are deepening sensory fulfillment through focus on rest, that's a good thing. But the reason for the dimensional breakdown is to make sure that the practice maintains balance. So, sensory fulfillment and reduction of suffering associated with discomfort, those are two dimensions. But there is also the dimension of insight. And there are ways of paying attention to the restful states where you focus on impermanence and impersonality and non-entityhood. There are ways that you focus on the restful states so that it brings insight, and that's called a vipassana jhana, technically, an absorption that has a clarification or Aia Sophia, a holy wisdom uh, component. But then there's also improvement in personal behaviors. So, are you taking feedback from a broad range of people as to how you're carrying yourself in the world, what you say, the influence, the maturity, um, and logical soundness of your rhetoric
Mhm.
needs to be tempered with feedback from
Mhm.
a broad range, not just from some teacher or authority figure, but from your family members, kids. How do animals relate to you? Broad feedback about how you're carrying yourself in terms of your personal life. And I would even extend that to how we carry ourselves in terms of the larger arc of the world's now. There's the now that of this our a current situation that we may find ourselves in. That's a local objective now. And we try to improve our behaviors. But there's also the global objective now. Where's the world going to go? That's very much an area of concern everywhere, with troubling tendencies of immature and irresponsible rhetoric, very easy to see everywhere. Everywhere. That's part of the spirit of the times also. By including the study of uh, deductive and causal reasoning, which is what I'm working on now to extend unified mindfulness from
Mhm.
the power of the sensory now to a larger power of the logical now, you might say, so that
Mhm.
with the aid of the new AI, if we pre-vet our rhetoric in a certain way, we'll be assured of being
Mhm.
correct, but we have to let the AI correct us.
Mhm.
And then you'll, there's another Chinese expression, if you know yourself and know the other, you can have 100 engagements with no trauma. Victor, I think you know how to say that in Chinese. I think we even discussed it in
Yes, we
Chinese
discussed it,
in
right?
China.
Yes.
That's the China plan. It's a good idea.
Mhm.
Russia and the United States should listen
Mhm.
to that idea.
Mhm.
And so AI can help us now if we have the courage to face our own limitations.
Mhm.
Once again, the theme of staying small to get big.
Mhm.
So, with that extension, I can say, wow,
Mhm.
congratulations. The You're a graduating class that represents the international hope of the world.
Interesting that you described mm, focus on rest in terms of the happiness grid. Периодическая таблица элементов счастья, мы говорим, Леш. Mm, I was just translating for the translator the happiness grid, the way we parse it in Russian.
I've
Um,
got to ask, we can really do simultaneous translation because
yeah,
Russian takes
yeah,
a long
sure.
time to say. Alexei must be very fast.
Well, a professional synchronous interpreter, so.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. So
And
yeah,
thanks God
it's
you
a,
speak relatively slow, so
oh, I
which
can
helps.
speak slower. I'm
No,
good at
no need,
speaking
no need.
slow.
It's all good. Yes, thumbs up. Alexei, good? Okay, yeah, okay.
Хорошо. It's about
Okay. So yeah, it it was interesting to me to hear you um, map the like the way we talked about focus on rest now, mapping it onto the happiness grid. Because yes, of course you're right, but it never occurred to me to think about it this way, to map the see, hear, feel onto the happiness grid, to realize that
essentially
yes, of course, yeah,
you're
you can use
listening
it for.
very. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go on. I was just saying that, yeah, that it makes total sense that, of course, you focus on rest in order to reduce your suffering, to increase your fulfillment, in order to know yourself better and deeper, in order to perform better, to change your the ways you behave, to be of a better service to others. So all of those dimensions essentially can be aided in different ways and at different times by this same kind of general method or strategy of mindfulness work. And the same goes for any other mindfulness strategy, obviously. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And the same applies to the deep and careful listening that a mindfulness professional can give to their client. You're listening for the same thing. You're trying to find out what kind of person they are, how they say certain things will indicate how they see the world and give you hints as to how to communicate. And then you take what you know about them, what they've revealed, perhaps through subtleties in their language. You take that and then you compare that to the happiness grid and see, okay, for this person, what languaging is going to be aligned to achieve these general goals. The languaging is customized to the kind of person you're trying to service. But so that's very specific. But in the background are very generic skills and very generic ultimate goals that are relatively simple. And so the mindfulness professional fills in the relationships, which can be very complicated, between the different connectors that connect a simple skill set with a simple happiness paradigm. But in between, we need humans. And that's a mindfulness professional. But more and more, those humans will be backed up by AI.
Mhm.
So in English, we can say, and it sort of makes a poem, the bots got your back. But I don't know if there's an idiomatic way to say that in
I'm not
other
sure.
languages. It's like you're protected, it's a shield
Mm.
and a
Mm.
sword. And that's what I'm mostly working on now is the underlying um, algebraic mathematics that will be
Mm.
optimal for all of us, no matter what language we use, to communicate with our bots, to aid, to both to shield us against danger, because these things have real world consequences, but also to give us a weapon actually, because our logic will be pre-vetted by the syntax that we use to carefully
Mm.
talk to the AI. Underneath the AI is perfect mathematical reasoning. And if we reflect that in our human natural language, we will be able to win every argument for the right reasons. That's a big idea.
And a very tempting one, for sure.
Attractive.
Attractive, yes, very.
It's a
Um,
strange attractor. That's hard to translate it. That's a math thing. A strange attractor in geometry. Hey, but it
uh,
was Russians who figured this shit out.
I don't know.
All the
I
theorems
don't
have
know
Russian
that.
names on them. Yeah.
Sorry. Strange attractors. Have to Google that to ask the AI to explain it to me.
Kolmogorov.
Oh my God.
Kolmogorov complexity. I know I'm not pronouncing the name right, but you know who I'm
You are.
talking about, I'm sure. He has a complexity measure that is very relevant to this, but don't get me on that or you'll just get a
Maybe by
stream
the
of
end, maybe by the end
no, you'll just get
of
a
our
lot of
conversation,
equations.
because of course, there were some questions about what you're working at the current moment. So we'll
Well, you
get to
just
that maybe.
heard that's what
Yeah.
I'm working on. I'm working on topos theory as applied to
Mm,
logic, as applied to teaching mindfulness in the age of AI
mm,
and global tensions.
mm. So I'm tempted to get back to the idea of to the way you described this being big small, because it relates to another question about the auto dimension, the automatic wisdom function, if you will. Mm, and the question again is about how how do you define or how do you recognize when it's um, when it's say genuine spontaneity rather than a an impulsive reaction driven by a reactive self.
It's a very important question. I'll tell you a weird interaction that I had a long, long time ago with a German woman in Japan. Nicola Geiger was her name. And she actually met Hitler, knew Hitler. She was a member of the Deutsche Mädchenbund. That was the Hitler Youth. And she can still remember how excited she was when Hitler said, Du bist eine gute deutsche Mädchen. You are a good German girl. And she said something about Hitler that I didn't understand. It was very confusing. Um, when he would speak, there was no self there. He was channeling, but a factually and logically incorrect myth about how the world works that killed how many innocent people because of that myth? It all made sense. Jews are behind all your problems and communists, and those two things go hand in hand. If there's another world war, we have to, of course, defeat Russia and let the Jews die because that's it. That's the last war they'll cause. Hitler really believed that. And when he put a gun to his head, he still believed that he was right and that everyone had failed him. But what's the ultimate cause? Some very bad reasoning. The same advice goes for this question as was appropriate for the last question. You may be able to channel an inspired blah, blah, blah. But are you right for the right reasons? Are you willing to have a fundamental epistemological humility about everything you say? I hope so. If not, that's the path to tyrannical governance. Mm. So it's the same answer. What kind of feedback are you getting from the world about what you're saying? Is it helping or is it causing problems? And you need to take everyone's feedback, not just some people's feedback. With the information age, we can get everyone's feedback now, whole world. And we can give a report card to everyone who's a leader. Kids can generate a report card on their parenting of their parents. And any citizen in any country, if they do some hard work, can send an appreciation to any leader. And if that leader needs an intervention, and that intervention has
Most
been...
of them do. Sorry. Most of them do, I said.
Well, if your appreciation, I'm going to call it an appreciation, it also may be a stingy Valentine card, but we'll still call it an appreciation. If your appreciation has been courageously vetted against the logic of the bot by careful training, essentially everyone in the world will agree with you. So now you sort of have some safety. But you still need courage. But if you're prepared to be small, you're prepared for possible consequences. And I think that's what in Christianity is called being a Christian.
So again,
just saying.
Right.
So it's like, does it agree with logic and evidence? What do people say about what you're channeling? Is it helping them, or is it just like some weird shit?
Right.
So similar answer,
not to channel your inner Hitler, right?
We all have it. See, that's the first move we have to make is, come on. We all, we start with being small. It doesn't start with being big. It starts with being, oh yeah, The same way they fucked up, anyone can fuck up. Germany thought there was no doubt they were the most advanced civilization, and within a few years, they still haven't recovered from the. My German friends
Mm.
still have not recovered from that guilt.
Sure.
Yipes! Let's not have that again.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that this answers um, another question that one of the students had, whether you consider yourself um, an enlightened God, human being, something like that.
Oh yeah, in India they have this God man thing. Yeah, the God man. Oh, that's a good one. Uh, that's a joke. Come
Yeah.
on. No
Mm,
human has perfection or even anything remotely like that.
mm,
That's another thing Christianity is very clear about, and they're right. You start claiming you're Christ,
mm,
we've got mental problems. But you start behaving like Christ in little ways.
mm,
Now we say you've begun to pull yourself out of sin. Oh,
mm.
what's the word you've got? There's a word in Russian. What is it? Uh, Prelesti, something like that.
Прелесть. Right.
Prelest. It's like people are lost and
Mm,
then they're found, but
mm,
in a way that's compatible with religion, but doesn't really require religion.
mm,
And that's important also in the
mm.
modern world.
I want to switch um, gears a little bit, and I think I mean, of course, it's still related. Everything is, um, because we're still talking about practice and the insight and humility that it brings. But one of the questions was about your own, mm, say, stages of practice, or I mean, right now you talked about being small, or being, like channeling from the unborn, mm, or embodying it. um, I guess my question is, at what stage have you realized it, or was it always like that? Have you got into practice already knowing this, or
Yeah,
looking
people are
back,
interested in
you know?
stages.
Right. Maps and
Yeah,
stages,
but
also a common trope in
let's
our questions
yeah
here.
let's
Yes.
well
But
let's
if
just
you
say
ground it to your own
I've
life.
reached the stage where I'm not interested in stages anymore.
Okay. Okay. Fair
I'll
enough.
say that much.
Fair enough.
Maybe
But
that sounds mysterious and it
no,
sounds like
makes sense.
avoiding the question. But
Makes total sense.
interest in stages
Mm,
is a stage you have to get over.
right.
But it's
Mm,
fun to compare them. I spent decades doing that in 6 languages. But, in Chinese, there's this word yuanbao. It means the original treasure, right?
mm,
Victor, and it's
yes,
a
Yamba.
symbol you see all over
Yes.
China. So the original treasure isn't brought in from the outside, it's always there.
Mm,
It's your family's safe where it's kept, your own family, your own heritage as a
mm,
human.
mm,
So you talk about stages, it sounds strange. You the door is open to the treasure house of our shared human heritage.
Mm.
And it's boundless.
Would you say we kind of slowly transform by getting into contact with that in a more
Yeah,
frequent, a
well,
deeper
I guess,
way?
if we were to talk about stages, broadly, it boils down to the ability to be happy independent of conditions. And that has grown daily for me. Um, Ever since I was, I don't know, about 29 years old or so. Um, and now I'm like 81. So that just gets more and more real until you realize it's like real, real. It's like, okay, if I fall down in the desert alone and I'm just going to die there, and that's that, I'll still have a smile on my face. Um, that's the sign. I had a monk tell me, a Western Catholic, Roman Catholic monk, that in the monastery, the corpses are always smiling when they have the funerals for the deceased brothers.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so there's that, and
Mm.
that's certainly a dimension. And if then you wanted, and that's become, all I can say is what the old books say happens does happen. It actually does happen. Um, but then there's like, do you have your shit together as a person? Uh, and that challenge never ends. You keep making mistakes. You keep being non optimal.
Mm.
You keep having to grow up um, while you grow deep, while you grow down. You're growing up. And you just become, one becomes increasingly aware of how difficult it is to be an admirable, ordinary human being.
Yeah. Yeah, Ken Wilber says about this distinction between waking up and growing up, right? So,
Yeah, you can be quite liberated and quite misled and misleading. And I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. And I had to learn the hard way myself. I
mm.
projected things on teachers that then it's obvious no, the emperor's actually doesn't have any clothes on, if you're familiar with that metaphor. But I
Sure.
couldn't believe it. How can someone be that deep and that misguided?
Now it's easier to see it when they have Twitter, so just makes it easier to spot the lack of appropriate clothing. So
It's hard
okay,
to
we have a
be, yeah, it's hard to have a rounded practice.
yeah.
Takes Typically it takes a long time, and you have to listen to a lot of feedback.
Yeah, thank you. So we have a hand. Anastasia, you can just unmute yourself and
Mhm. Hi, Shinzen. Very
Hi.
nice seeing you here. Hi. Just continuing from the stages. I'm not so much interested in like evolving, but rather if you ever felt that you were stuck or going in circles and like you were very like, why am I doing this? What's going on? What helped you? What helped you move on, go on?
Actually, I've been stuck many times in practice, sometimes for a few years. Um, and It was usually in situations where I was not happy about how I was dealing with the situation, but I couldn't do any better. And so it's happened numerous times. And What got me through was I would usually do some intense practice to help push me forward, like go to an intense retreat or do here in the United States, you can talk to Native Americans, American Indians, and participate in shamanic ceremonies that are quite a big challenge to equanimity. So I would participate with Native people in challenging ceremonies. So just do things like that to sort of push me forward. And then the other thing is the first few times you hit a real sticking point, you haven't yet had the experience of eventually breaking through. So you don't have the experiential confidence that eventually you will transcend it. But after you've had a few of those cycles, then you know that it may take time, months, sometimes years even, but eventually the practice is like the rising sea. It eventually inundates that problem and you transcend it. So you gain what I would call experiential confidence after a few cycles. And then it's much easier to deal with.
Thank you.
Mm. Have your own ways of looking at practice change throughout the years? Like, for example, mm, just a few minutes ago, you mm, mm, had this metaphor about the treasure house, and that's always there. But at other times, it may be useful to regard practice as going to a gym, and you of course also used that metaphor, explored that as well, um, like building the skills and so forth. Mm, do you remember how your own views on practice changed?
I remember a few benchmarks, but once again, these are my benchmarks. They might
Sure.
not be universal. I got interested in these practices because of an interest in Asian culture. So the first stage was it was just a cultural curiosity or an exoticism. I wanted to become native in some Asian languages, and a big part of the traditional cultures of Japan, China, India um, are around meditation practices, and there's a copious technical vocabulary about meditation in those languages that I would have to learn if I wanted to be native in those languages. So there was like a cultural, um, the cultural adventure phase.
Mhm.
And um, then what? I guess then I discovered drugs, like a lot of people uh, in the US. And it's like, wow, there's these altered states. And it's like that makes you more uh, accepting of the notion that something like meditation might be feasible because you got high on LSD and the world sort of melted or something. So I think a lot of people went through a phase like that. But in my case, it was informed by a knowledge of Asian cultures. Then um, something happened. I had I hadn't meditated yet. I'd never meditated, and spontaneously I had a little bit of a stream entry or kensho experience, a little one. And I was on cloud nine for about 2 weeks until it sort of wore off. But it changed me forever because then I knew, okay, these things that the meditators report, that before that I sort of thought were made up to gain, for rhetorical purposes, to gain social status or get money for the temple. They make up these stories about. But then I knew, no, actually, there is this whole other thing. They're not just making it up, they're struggling to describe something that's real. So then I knew it was real, but I didn't have it anymore. Um, because I didn't have any way to hold it. I didn't have any systematic practice. So then I got into Buddhist scholarship, and eventually I got into practice. I went to Asia. It was really tough, the hardest thing I ever did. Every day was like, can I make it through this day? But I did it the old fashioned way. And by the end of that period, which was a number of years in Asia, I always was in a sort of concentrated state. all the time. I could taste samadhi. So I was like not bored as much, or it's like, wow, okay, I can do this thing all the time. So I sort of had a permanent taste of high focus that was stable as the result of living in monasteries for a while. Then I came back, and I was back for a little, back to the US. I was back for just a little while, and I had another breakthrough. But this time I had a momentum of practice. It didn't go away. It just got wider and wider, day after day, week after week, year after year. And sure, there's evolution within that. But recently, perhaps because of the ultrasound or just because of aging or maturing, I sort of dropped to it's a whole other thing now. It's there's very little difference between seated practice and just going about life. Um, but I still fuck up and make mistakes all the time.
No way.
Yeah, I wish. So you just have to keep working.
Would you say that pursuing the state of a constant degree of focus and concentration is a viable strategy
Well,
to kind of
what
to aim for?
what my teachers strongly emphasized was anything that you experience lying down or seated in stillness, you've got to be able to access that kind of depth in any circumstance.
Yes.
So the emphasis was not on deepening sitting practice, it was on maintaining depth during ordinary life activities. And that was an orientation that was very strong from all my Asian teachers that had helped me at an early period. So I always had that orientation. And now I see what they were talking about. It's become experiential now.
Thank you. We have another question, Kirill. Just
Hello, and thank you for holding this meeting for us. I wanted to ask a question about what does unified mindfulness and you have to say about investigating the practice itself. It seems to me that unified mindfulness doesn't explicitly have to say a lot about that. That it seems to me that it might be a fun theme, and going back to our previous theme, it might be a cool thing to unstuck, like to understand what I'm doing, and like I'm noting in a way A, but there might be way B, C, and D how to do noting. Maybe I can do it lightly, or from a background, or I can hold attention in that way, or I can investigate the object. There are tons of different possibilities.
And you're asking for some guidelines as to how to make that decision, which to focus on or how to focus at a given time?
It's more a question about what do you think about the practice of investigating the practice itself as an object, sort of, if it makes sense.
investigating the practice as an object. Can you give me a little bit more detail about what you have in mind by that phrase?
Mm-hmm. It seems to me that there might be sometimes different ways of doing the same thing, like paying attention to something, and we can do it in different ways. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And when we are doing noting, we are paying attention to something, and we can do like this one thing in many different ways. And there are a lot of aspects of practice which we can do in a different way.
And the question that you have is how to go about making
um,
that decision, or what to do about the
it's
fact
to
that
how to
there
go
is that
about
decision?
do you think that it is important to investigate your own practice, and if so, how to do that?
Ah, okay. I may be able to provide some information. I'm still not entirely convinced I understand your question, but let me make an
Okay.
attempt. Uh, in general, when you apply a technique, that technique may cause reactions. Those reactions could be pleasant, unpleasant, mixed, or even neutral. But a general principle is if you're applying a certain approach and it causes a pleasant or unpleasant reaction, you continue to apply that approach to that reaction. And the English phrase would be recycle. You cycle it back. So, in that sense, you are making your own subconscious tendencies the object of your practice. So I would say it gets covered by the general principle that when you apply a technique, how your deep consciousness reacts to that technique tells you a lot about yourself. And then you can simply apply the technique to that reaction. And in that way, you are, in a sense, throughout your whole meditation career, monitoring your practice as part of your practice. That's, I'm not sure if I properly understood your question, but that's a place to start. If there's a next step, tell me.
Can I maybe add also, because there is a related question about the markers of progress. How do you decide that a certain technique works? Like you're applying the see, hear, feel to whatever is happening to you? How do you know you're making progress? And of course, it cycles back to the general skill set of concentration, power, sensory clarity, and equanimity.
Are
Right?
your skills getting better?
So
Is your
that's what
life
you
getting
assess,
better?
of course.
That's it. Uh, if your skills are getting stronger and sharper, and you notice general tendencies for multidimensional improvement in your happiness, and you have sober optimism about the future, because these practices, they reinforce our better angels. So they make us optimistic locally and globally, individually and collectively. But on the other hand, it's a sober optimism. The first noble truth in Buddhism is dukkha, suffering. You will die and be forgotten after enough years. 10,000 years, I don't think my name is you're going to die. You're going to be forgotten. You're going to get injured. You're going to be sick. You're going to be disappointed by people, and you're going to disappoint people, and you're going to disappoint yourself. And yet we can still optimize your happiness. But it's a sober optimism, I would say, and therefore it's realistic.
Yeah, and of course, you're not only honing your own inner skills, but also get feedback, as we were saying before. So it's a multidimensional assessment of your own
And in the
practice, of course.
multidimensionality comes through that, we have the structural guarantee of some degree of balance. It's the whole idea. You put a lot of. I remember just once, I've flown in a billionaire's plane, a private plane where you go into the cockpit and talk to the pilots, and there's only you and a servant, or not a servant. What do they call that?
Flight
And there's two
attendants.
pilots, and I'm the only. It's like, a very wealthy person, right? Owns a fleet of airplanes and sent me somewhere. But what was interesting is talking to the pilots, because you normally don't do that. You don't just go in there and start whatever, but they're working for this guy. So, and what they said is, it's okay to come into the cockpit, but when you're in here, you're another pair of eyes. Watch what's going on. We're talking to you, but you need to help us. And they enlisted me. If I want to talk to the pilots, that's okay. But it's another pair of eyes and potentially another pair of hands. And so now I'm part of the crew. And that was interesting. So, and there's a deeper and broader metaphor there. If you have, in fact, a broad spectrum of dimensions, you've got lots of triangulations to keep you safe. And the more things your hands can touch, more dimensions of skillful influence. So we can leverage the fact that we have clear skill dimensions and clear goal dimensions. And then what's in between, well, that's the job of the coach. But we've now got the AI to help us with our sound and mature rhetoric. Put that all together, we've got a powerful practice, a powerful force in the world.
What do you see as the most challenging thing for a teacher, for a mindfulness teacher, meditation teacher?
It's probably to take seriously the possibility that you will become enlightened in the classical sense. What, me, the fuck up, is going to be like some sort of something?
Mm.
No one believes that until it happens to them.
Mm.
And then it's like, oh yeah, it's like just any ordinary idiot. This can happen. And it happened to me. Oh my God. And then you acclimatize to it and it's not special. But it seems very, very special until it actually happens and then some time passes. And then it's like just another day at the office. It's hard to believe that's actually likely going to happen. But you, in the modern world, people don't go to a monastery. The monastery comes to them. Something happens. And often it's something uncomfortable. And you have no choice. You're in the hospital, you're in jail, you're in the failed relationship. Now you have to go to the monastery, both to function and to be okay. And everyone will pass through those kinds of things. We take the whole person over their whole life as the unit of interest. So, in a strange way, a coach is waiting for horrible things to happen to their student. And you're there to make sure that that becomes what forces them to transcend. And you're not happy that they're unhappy, but you're happy that you're there in a way that will deeply affect them, but not necessarily instantly or very quickly affect them. But you know you're doing nature's Socratic work. You're the midwife. Socrates called his method the maieutic method in Greek. That means the midwife. You're giving birth to the next level of maturity in your client. You're a midwife in the modern world.
Yeah, it is a difficult thing. Thank you. That's that's an interesting way to put it. That we kind of We wish for people to get to a monastery, so to speak, but then we are there to get them prepared enough to deal with that.
Life is just a telephone call away.
Sure.
You never know what's going to be on the other end of that telephone call. I heard that phrase, "Life is a telephone call away," at a traditional ceremony with Native Americans. At these ceremonies, the dancers and the public can get up, and there's a PA system where you can talk to everyone. And one of the dancers got up and said, I just got a telephone call that my son has been arrested for some crime. Life, and then he said, life is just a telephone call away. And I've had that experience of people calling me in the middle of the night with the most horrific events, actually, that you could imagine. I don't even want to, I would hesitate to even say how bad. And I know what my job is. And I know that it may take several years, but they will get their life back, likely. And I'm the midwife to the self that can pass through that horrible life catastrophe and be purified. There's a big difference between purgatory and hell. We can't necessarily avoid purgatory in this life, but we can avoid hell and sometimes find heaven. If by heaven you mean a place so deep that you don't need restaurants or bathrooms.
Questions, comments, hands?
I don't know about you, Victor, but haven't we said a lot?
Yeah, man.
Not sure there's that much more to say.
Sure. Thank you.
To be continued, though.
To be continued, and we all have to digest and to integrate it now into our smaller ways of being, through which hopefully something bigger can shine.